Detroit, hey, you know I'm gonna keep going. I ain't about to stop. You thought you stopped. We ain't about to stop. But as I get Mr. Jamarie Hall back on, I don't care if I gotta do 20 lives today. We gonna get this message out, okay? But you know, I done lost my thought, Detroit, because I ain't never really had no interruptions. I don't know if it's because I'm outside. I don't know. But in the meantime, while I get Mr. Jamarie Hall back on, it's just important for us to stay engaged because the district, you know, they got this informative meeting going on March the 19th at 5:30, and I believe it's going to be through either Zoom or Microsoft Teams, and maybe hopefully an engagement meeting in person. But, you know, Cooley has their meeting coming up on the potential renovations, which is already grant money. So, Detroit, let me be fair. But then you have now more so the pushing of the engagement meetings for these new buildings. And I mean, with what's going on right now, with what's similar to Miss Moore, Queen Mother Helen Moore was saying about, you know, maybe we really need to revisit the 700 million in buildings because of what's going on. But then you got buckets in the hallway at Spain, and you have them at what is it, Sampson Weber, and maybe other schools. So we kind of got to really think about what's going on, Detroit, pay attention. But I am encouraged that the district has created these this first meeting, which is Wednesday the 19th at 5:30. I don't know what's going on. It does pay to read. Hopefully Jamarie will get back on here. There you go. So I can invite you. Bam. Thank you. Okay, let me add you back. Oh, it says this person is unable to join because of technical issues. So I'm trying to rejoin you, and I'm going to keep going, but it does say this person cannot join because of technical issues, Jamarie. So we might have to do another one at another time or right after this one. If you want to turn on your live and then add me, that's fine. But as I keep talking, I'm trying to add you, and it's saying we having technical issues. So, hey, I'm not for sure. I'm not going to talk y'all ear off, Detroit, but I did just want to come on and just, like I said, Southfield and Jackson over the weekend have put out public meetings and announcements for their engagement meetings. You know, so whether a district is big or small, regardless of these federal cuts, they will be hit in some type of way. So engagement right now with stakeholders is a must wherever you're at throughout the whole United States. Okay. But, to just, like I said, we had an event, shout out to Eric Brown over the weekend. We had an event at WC3 on Outer Drive concerning education, just having a conversation. There was some engagement. I thank him for having the young people on the panel, like I said, because they are in the schools every day and they are seeing and living what's going on in real life. They were grateful for the tutoring program, but the young man stated, you know, even though he's not, you know, academically that bad, he still would feel comfortable with tutoring. You know, the money was an intriguing thing for him, but he like, hey, you know, money or no money, I still wouldn't mind the tutoring. So, you know, that's something to think about. But like I said, Spain, I'm going to keep lifting up Spain. I'm going to keep lifting up Sampson Weber because it's a shame in this time. You know, Mashawn Jackson from facilities did come and talk to me about, you know, the conditions of Sampson Weber, and that the board did, you know, kind of do an emergency approval or whatever. I'm not even going to say emergency, but they did approve for corrections in that building as far as the roof. But ultimately, Mashawn Jackson concerning Sampson Weber told me that, you know, since the community wanted to stay and the district gave them 5 years in that building, they are now on year 3. The district had no intentions on adding money to Sampson Weber. So regardless, I guess, of the demographics that are up and coming in the Sampson Weber area, regardless of the community wanting to stay, the district is not, willing to cooperate as far as, okay, I think he's, okay, I'm going to accept. Let me see if I can add them. Okay, it is adding. But, it up as well as Spain. Now, I can only talk about those two schools because I know that those two schools currently have severe building issues, leaking buckets in the hallway. And it doesn't really add up in 2025. Regardless, I'm not saying a full job, but what I'm saying is emergency patch jobs. We're not asking for much because these leaks and these holes were there, I believe, when Dr. Nikolai Vitti and his board was created, which was 6-7 years ago. So it doesn't take that long to patch a roof. But with no further ado, let's continue our conversation, Jamaria
Yes.
Hall.
I mean, these are the same things that we were arguing about. These are the same things that we were talking about at Osborne. These are the same things, that literally the same exact things. Onto finding out that we did have lead in our water, onto finding out that we didn't have workable bathrooms, usable stalls, to rodents and black mold being available, because if it's mold or if it's dripping in the hallway, it's no telling what else is going on. So now we're talking about the health of these babies. So it's a lot to really go on to where even we had an appraisal of the district to see how much it would cost to get the district, I guess not quote unquote up to standard part, but to at least get it obtainable, to at least have it as a environment for learning, at least, like you said, not fucking buckets in the hallway. That's at no rate so children have to go through that at all, especially when a lawsuit in the same city was just filed to talk about these same things. So it's really irate, like you said, almost 10 years later, it's the same thing going on in the same district. So our quote or our appraisal was for 500 million to get schools up to par. They said that the schools were built, the way the schools were built, the foundation of it is solid. The way in the garments or whatever material was used to build the buildings was a very, very fine material. So it was really just about the maintenance of the buildings. No maintenance had been done to the buildings in so long. So it was just like basic things can at least get done to not have radiators leaking and gas, or like you said, buckets in the hallway, to at least be able to have workable water systems within the bathrooms, to be able to at least have some type of updated system without having to recreate or tear down and create new buildings. And this was with abandoned buildings that we were appraising. So these were broken down abandoned schools that we were kind of walking into. So this also, when we talk about the community being able to have their own autonomy. So when we talk about things such as a literacy task force that's supposed to be created to advise not only the district or not only the school board, but also the city, this is things that we would have been able to do, which is provide a self-appraisal. Let's go get an appraisal of the school district and see, because there's no way in the world that you're telling me it costs $2 billion to get a school district up to par. That's our rate.
2.1, sir. I don't know where the 0.1 came, but we at 2.1 right now, sir.
You got to make sure the carpets, everything is all included, from the chandeliers hanging down. Like, we're not trying to get, and our argument has never been that we wanted West Bloomfield schools. We just wanted schools that we can be able to comfortably learn in. I don't want to go in here and feel like a jail. I don't want to come in here and feel like it's a daycare. I don't want to come in here and feel like I'm getting sick, because maybe I am getting sick.
Because
Maybe there is,
maybe
maybe it is lead or things of this nature. We don't know what else is going on in this environment because it's not even attainable. No one should be learning in this environment. No one should be teaching or working in this environment. So then that's how we get to the point to where not only are we not being proficient, but we're not even covering the basic needs. So that's why I love organizations that are now starting out doing mutual aid and things of that nature, because we talk about these babies learning, but these babies, their home conditions aren't too much different in some of these communities, to understanding that these tore down schools are in tore down communities. So you're not seeing fine schools in tore down communities. So understanding that a lot of these students are coming in some of these same conditions.
So, I mean, just like we went to this good event and it was informative this weekend, as us being out here advocating, you have your organization, but you seeing the children, you interacting with our students on a regular, whether it's in the community, in the schools. I mean, it's so cliche to just say, you know what I'm saying, a call of action, but just kind of let our community know the small steps, because we can complain about our higher authority, right?
Hmm.
In Washington, right? We can even go to Lansing if we want and complain on a state level. But just kind of, you know, in your words, what can our local people do, as far whether you in the district, whether you're a stakeholder, whether you a community member, what do you feel like people can do, small steps, just to make a difference right at this time right now?
I think the first question has to be like, what is the purpose of education? And I think when you answer that question, you can't document yourself. So I think even in the confinement of that, like education used to be getting a high school diploma, so just graduating. Then it used to be like being able to get a job and things of that nature, or now it may be getting a degree. So those are going to be the statutes that we're going to measure our students by, or our children, because sometimes they're getting these things and aren't able to be productive citizens to society. So they still don't know basic things. So we're still having to baby adults because they don't know regular life skills. So at one point in time, we got to really think about what is the purpose of education. But truthfully, we have to mandate that we are educated. And in whatever manner that may be, if that's you showing up to a school board meeting, if that's you just being present, if that's you asking questions at your local school of how education is being taught, what are their curriculums. But at the end of the day, we do have to come to a consensus of what do we want education to look like for us in our community, and what does that look like. And I think we also got to center the babies within these questions. And truly ask them, your babies coming home saying they don't know what they learned today, they may not be far fetched, or they didn't learn much today. We're not retaining the information that's being taught. So it's not that they really didn't learn it. They may have forgot everything they learned by the time they got home. So just understanding, how are my babies being taught? What is the educational system? We can't continue to think that the systems have the best interests of our babies at heart, because they aren't obligated to. So then at the end of that, we do have to mandate a quality education. That's a constitutional right. That was what the whole lawsuit was about. So the money was a good thing, but the money was nothing. If we don't have a quality education, that's a constitutional right, and then we have to mandate what is quality. So that's when you ask yourself, what is education? Because somebody else may tell you that your students are getting a quality education, and that's what they're doing. So also, as we was talking, the National Student Bill of Rights, getting a student bill of rights to mandate what are some obligations that needs to happen within any school, no matter what zip code that's in. But if this is a public school, what does the educational system look like? If that's making sure that they have safe learning environments, such as no buckets being in the hallway, we need to do that. There's no way that any child should be able to learn or have to go to an environment where they have buckets in the hallway, or they feel like that they're going to a detention center. There's no way why these students should be in schools that have proficiency rates under 10%. And we talking about 1 and 2% growth. That's not okay for nobody, not even for the babies, not for the parents, not for the community. We need to have higher metrics and higher expectations for our babies. But I think the biggest thing is having hope. You got to have hope in the youth. So no matter what you're doing, where you at, you got to have hope in these babies. When you look at them and you see them and you read and you hear everything, or you have interactions with them, you got to have hope. Don't look at them like they need some help or they need saving. Look at them like a love that needs hindering. Or sometimes just give them a hug. Give a baby a hug. Love them. Love on the babies. Have hope for the babies. Have
So
great
you mean we could
expectations.
hug the
Man,
YNs?
hug the YN. Tell them to take a ski mask off. It's hot outside. I know you sweat.
Hey,
I know you hot.
yes sir, yes sir, yes sir, yes sir, because sometimes that's all it takes. Sometimes that's all it takes. But I mean, right now, I mean, even when I ask my daughter, you know, it's so cliche. I asked her, "How was school today?" Good. What you do? Good. You know, and then I have to go in detail to try to pull it out. But you know, the electives, the resources, the counseling. I mean, all of this is up, right? And we know this potentially, and we still proceeding with building buildings. I
Mm.
mean, what's your thoughts on that? Because, like I said, over this weekend, the district been pumping. Hey, we about to have a Cooley meeting. We about to have an athletic center, like I said, which is separate funding from the 700 million.
Mm.
But you still, they tearing down Paul Robeson as we speak. Pershing is up, the other three. So what's your thoughts really on the continuation with this 700 million on top of all this other extra funding? I understand you talking about defining education, but where we are right now with what's going on, what's your take on, should we revisit that money? Should we, just, hey, we just moving forward. We're going to go to this meeting on the 19th and find out what they saying. But what's your thoughts on the construction and all of the stuff just continuing like it's just every day, normal?
I mean, I think we forget about like also the 700 million that was spent on the COVID relief. So we did build 2 COVID facilities that also cost. So when I look at it, I really look at it at 1.4, just because that's just a totality that has been built on infrastructure or facility wise. Even though those COVID hubs were built and I guess taken down, but I know there was also contracts that were given out to people that were doing the COVID test within the schools, and we were the only district to do that. And I know the cost around that was 700 million also. So that was from the COVID relief funding, but understandably so, it was supposed to be spent on that. But I think we could have did something at least a little bit more constructive within that. But then now we look at the 700 million and we had our appraisal for 500 million, saying that we could have fixed the school district. So we could have updated multiple schools and not just built a couple schools. So understanding like who are you building schools for? And then when I see things that are happening at the schools that are getting rebuilt, and I see the stipulations and the conditions, and are the same people that were at the schools before they were getting built, are they going to be there when they finish? And what are going to be the conditions? And just kind of looking at the schools that were targeted that had large histories, and they had alma maters, and they had a lot of tradition within those communities, within those schools. Um, is that going to still be there? Is that going to be continued? And what is that going to look like in the future? And again, just like, who is it being built for? That's just my biggest question. Who is it being built for? Because if we wanted to really constructively use it, I think we could have spread it around a little bit more to make more of an impact, to make sure that all schools were obtainable and at least accessible for students. We shouldn't have any schools with buckets in the hallway and we're spending 700. So I'm just saying that's just common sense. I believe that doesn't make any sense when you have schools that are in these conditions, to where even if it's not buckets in the hallways, are these schools obtainable? Would you send your children to these schools? Would you send your children to these schools? And it's not even that these have to be in conditions that you want your children going to, but would you send any children to these schools? And we can't just continue to be okay with the subpar. And not saying, like, again, we don't need West Bloomfield schools, but we need at least workable heating system, workable air systems. We need to not have fumes in the hallways. We need to not have black mold in the hallways. We need to have workable water systems, workable bathrooms. We need to have the resources to learn in the schools to be able to actually learn and educate. These are just basic essential things.
Yes, sir. So, the district is big on students advocating for themselves, whether you have a individual education plan, an IEP, or a general ed student. I don't know when it flipped from students being advocated for to really they have to advocate to the adults to be held accountable. But what can you say at this time to a student that, like them students that were there over the weekend, they were in a space where they felt they could be comfortable. But what do you say to these babies, whether they in elementary, middle, or high school? What do you, because it took courage for you to do what you did. So what do you say to them right now, as far as either advocating for themselves or just questioning the powers, or what do you say to them?
I say listen to your instinct. I think that's what we really witnessed from the students. Those were questions that they didn't have the answers to, they didn't get before. So that was their pure thoughts in that moment. Even to the one person in the audience that was talking about his company, and the girl said, "I never heard about your company, and I don't like it." So they were being so pure to really be able to be in tune with your instincts and be able to, like you said, be free within that. So to be able to understand and articulate what you're feeling. So if you feel something is wrong, be able to articulate what you think is going on and what is wrong, and do your research. But I think the next step to it is also figuring out what you want and what you would like to see within your educational system. And it's a hard thing to think about because you have such a blank canvas, but it's still so much in documentation. But we have to get out of the one teacher to 30 student philosophy. There is, like we was talking about, even a young man wanting to do tutoring. There is a field to where maybe he doesn't even maybe just want to do tutoring. Maybe he can be a tutor. So if these students are excelling and we have students that are underperforming, why not help them help each other? Then we have near peer students. So even for the lawsuit, it's a class action lawsuit. So it's about the past students, the present students, and the future students of DPS. At this point, DPS CD, but it included all of us. Understand that we've all been miseducated, and we need to formally help each other. And within that, it's not about just the K through 3. I understand the K through 3, and then in 10 years we may look up. But what about the babies? What about the people in between time? In between that time, really trying to understand and get by. So creating a village, an ecosystem where parents and their peers can be involved within the educational system, regardless of their proficiency or their literacy, because they also have life experiences. And I think that's something that you really can't measure, especially if we get into a space where we can really have culturally relevant curriculum, to where peers can teach on the knowledge that's culturally relevant, that's then getting transferred to academic knowledge. So there's more different ways to learn it than the ways that we're using. And I think there's a lot of different things out here that are working in small different silos that we can really use and try to help, especially when we have things like, again, Beyond Basics or different companies that are coming in getting contracts at their proficiency levels for the amount of students, again, that they're working with. It's like we can use that and be productive. We can actually use that and put that into these babies to where even we think about the future of Detroit, these babies are the future. So how are they going to be able to fit into the future of Detroit? Detroit is changing drastically. And are these babies going to be able to fit into the society and the economic system of the future? So even with the $200, when we have the conversations about, it's fine to give them the $200, but if we're not teaching them about economics and financial literacy, and not just in a way that's just um, standard, meet them where they're at. Figure out how can we help them be creative and entrepreneurs and owners within this space, within this new ecosystem, where we're seeing young adults become millionaires overnight with this crypto, with this AI and this IT. They understand it. So understanding that this is their space and they can help us, we can all learn together.
And that's an excellent point because, like I told you, I mean, in all honesty, I said, hey, my baby, she a ninth grader. She said, hey, I go to school anyway, so I'm getting paid. Let's go. So she getting this money. And true enough, I got the attitude, you buy your personals, you do you. I'm not gonna be pressed about your money, but that literacy piece, that financial literacy piece. True enough, we parents, but it's coming from education, so they could, give them a little kicker in the email. Use it wisely, some little hints here or there with the email. But I mean, that's an excellent point. But anything else? I mean, even when you talk about the bill, the rights for students. I mean, and like I mentioned in the thing over this weekend, you sometimes the district may create these quote unquote student advocates, but even if concerns are mentioned to those students that are on the board, or and then they go on deaf ears, just encouraging these students, you said, to what? Follow your instinct, and if it ain't right, what you say?
If it ain't right, speak on it. Like, just speak on it. Be able to speak your mind. I think we get into these spaces to where you feel like something is so normal. So even for us as a society and as a community, we normalize so many things to where even as a child, you would think like, I don't think someone would send me to this if they knew what was going on in here, and they kind of like felt it. Then when your parents say they went through it too, it's kind of like, dang. So it's like you can have it react two different ways. Like, okay, this is the norm. This is what I'm supposed to be doing, and that's where the documentation concept starts. So we're like, okay, this is the process of education, or this is what education means. I either got to fall in line, or I'm just going to be kind of not excelling. It's not for me. And then that's why we have a high dropout rate. Then we talk about chronic absenteeism and the students not coming to school, but most students are chronically depressed. Then there is no reason as a student you getting stressed out about school. You talk to your student about school and they getting stressed out. That's what are we talking about? You're supposed to be going there to be able to be creative, to be able to learn, to be able to be educated. You're supposed to be engaged to go to school. You're supposed to love to go to school. It's supposed to be the best place. That's where you at most times out of the day. And you feeling like you depressed, you chronically depressed, you don't want to go to school, you want to act like you sick, you want to do these things, you'd rather make yourself sick than to go to school. I think it's not something wrong with the student. I think it's something wrong with the educational system. At that point, if we have students dropping out that are now being able to become successful, we have to think about, are the students that are successful, are they successful because of or despite the school system? So just the data. We got to be able to have our own intellect, our own thoughts, our own knowledge. You got to know who you are, because a lot of people gonna tell you who you are. So you got to know who you are, and you go understand that a lot of us, especially when you are in the predominantly Black community, we don't know who we are. So in that sense, we find it out together. And like I said, like democracy is not a destination; it's a journey. So what may be education today may not be education tomorrow. We should always continue to evolutionize. So this is one size fit all type educational system is not going to work, especially not for our babies, because we know it's created for certain people and certain babies. So even for a student, I know the system may tell you that you're unproficient, that you're at the bottom, but the bottom should be first. The first should always, like what they say, the last should be first, and the first should be.
Yeah, the last shall be first.
So
Yeah.
understanding that that's the predicament that we are in, and it's a gifted predicament because you know that you can read. It ain't the babies can't read; it's just they can't articulate and understand the concept of what's being taught or the reading concept to be able to put it down on the end. It's not again built for them, so we can't blame the babies. We got to figure out how can we make the system work.
And it's accountability. So just like even after the event we had this weekend, it was a gentleman that asked, he inquired, how do I find out about these meetings? You get on the DPSCD website, you click on current events. They give you the whole calendar up until it stops, until they not planning as far as showing us. So you can get on there at any time. These meetings are at the Fisher Building. You can attend most of them via Zoom. If you go down to the Fisher Building, your parking will be validated. If you're not a meeting person, talk to these teens, talk to these middle schoolers, talk to these elementary kids, whether they at your church, you see them at a youth group, in the library, at the rec center, wherever. Ask them, and they'll tell you, does this 1.27 billion, is it reflecting? Is the $200, is that effective? They will tell you their conditions if you ask them, and they will be honest, because like you said, if emergency management moms and dads are now raising children, they were used to the buckets in the hall, they were used to the oversized classrooms, they were used to the lack, and it just got worse. So, I don't like to talk Detroit to death, but I so appreciate you coming on, Mr. Jamari A. Hall. Any last thoughts or any conclusions? Because, like we said, it's all about trying to get to the betterment, what people can do, questions, or just what you want to say to Detroit as far as anything that they can do and where they can start to create change for our system as far as education.
Like you said, the perfect way is to start in our local communities. Like you said, going to the DPSCD website, showing up to the local communities, and seeing what's going on. I think when you show up and you start to see and you see how people move, and they speak on your behalf, they speak about you, or they speak around you, it kind of lets you know the predicament and the condition of the educational system. Again, thinking about who is the educational system being built for or advanced for in the city of Detroit, when we see the same schools being projected as proficient, and then we see the same schools being deficient. So we understand that there's maybe something working, but it's not working everywhere. Ask yourself the simple questions. And I think within that, then there's a larger conversation that we have to have again about quality education as a constitutional right. I don't think if we don't have a constitutional right, we talk about life, liberty, and happiness. You can't have those things if you're not educated, and not educated in reading or writing and whatever they may call in literacy, but understanding the concept of learning how to learn. Anything that comes up in life, there's always going to be new things. There's always going to be new advancements and evolutions. We need to be a part of those. We need to be educated to be able to not only be a part of those, but to adapt to what is going on. Too many times we've been left behind and we're at the bottom of advancements, or we get worked over because we have or we lack simple knowledge. We're in the city to where too many things have happened to us over the last 25 years to not be in a predicament to be able to control and to know and to be self-aware about our educational system and really controlling what are we being taught? And that is not just in schools. That's in our communities. That's in our homes. That's really doing your own research. That's being, when you're on social media, really reading, figuring out what's going on. A lot of things are in plain sight, but we don't want to believe it. So really understanding, believing what's going on, being aware of what's going on, but truly, truly, like I said, specifically for the Gary B initiative, we are going to be producing a student bill of rights. That is at least going to be a commandment to be able to understand what are the bare minimums of an education that we want to see for our students before we talk about what does true quality look like, because I think those are two different conversations. Babies being in schools with buckets in the hallway, that's not even a conversation. That shouldn't be happening at all. So then us talking about the curriculum and what they're being taught is a whole different conversation. So just understanding that we're talking about the bare minimum in the city of Detroit right now. We're talking about the basic essential things to be even able to start to be educated when we know we have a shortage of teachers. So we have to think about new paradigms, new educational systems. We have to be a part of those. Again, it doesn't matter about what your credentials are, how proficient you are, because truly, if you are if you have the credentials, if you are proficient, if you've been around for the last 25 years, you've been a part of the detriment of the city of Detroit. So we got to be understanding what is going on, who has been fished up, conditions of our community, and that looks like multiple different things. So even for some educators, for some even school principals, they're gonna have to understand what are they really doing, and do we really want to educate the babies? I think that's the question. That's what we really have to get down to. And if you really want to educate the babies and you love the babies, anything can happen.
Yes, sir. So before I let you go and let Detroit go, because I was gonna ask you about your organization, but if possible, could you put the information or a link or something
Yes,
in this
ma'am.
so that they can, if Detroit want to get involved with what you're doing and get more information about it, would you be able to do
Yes,
that?
ma'am. And I need Detroit, and that's the biggest thing. I think at this point, I will. We have been trying to build conversation with community, but also understanding that even like truthfully, just like the lawsuit, a lot of people didn't believe within the lawsuit because we have been so confined to what the norm was that thinking about something larger, especially by the babies, it was just almost like, what are we doing, almost type thing. Like, come on now, like, it's cute, but like, y'all not gonna really get no real change. So just thinking about if we can really have some hope behind the babies until not when we start to see the steam rolling, or not when we start to see success, or not when it's like, oh, it might start to be a bright side to it, but from the beginning we can start to listen to ourselves and understand, because it's something that we all know, a lot of these things. So we may have to do another lawsuit, and it may not be against the school district, we may be. So we have to understand what these things look like, and again, as citizens, as the people, we have to know what we want. We can't have or think that anyone or system is going to save us. Education is not just in schools. Education is within us, and we hold the power truthfully, and the power is in the room, especially with the babies. So I definitely put the information in there. Definitely want to be in conversation, but just want to present some different abstract things outside of just the constitutional right to education. Like I said, the National Student Bill of Rights, but also maybe we may need something for the parents. We may need something for teachers. We may need something for the village of the educational system. So just seeing what those may look like, and just also what are some programs that today the community can get funded to have our own educational curriculum. I think we talk about curriculum a lot in the city of Detroit and what are our babies being taught. But what do we want to see? If we had the funding, we had the resources, we were able to create what we wanted our babies to be taught, what would that look like? And I think we got to answer that question, because a lot of people are going to continue to paint pictures for us. But we got to be able to paint our own pictures, and then we have to also create metrics to that. We have to create our own metrics of success. We have to create our own grading system to understand how do we know if this program is being proficient. We can't wait for somebody else to tell us that we're doing something right to be able to think that we're on the right path. We can't wait for somebody else to implement it. even if that's community schools. We trying to create a partnership with the Detroit Public Library to be able to use the libraries as a hub again. I think we have to have more hubs, especially as just not only community but around education. Um, so I definitely put in the information. Truly appreciate you so much, Mama Moon. Always.
Always, as always, from the first day I met you up until now, it's always a privilege to conversate with you and to hear from you and to get your perspective. And I just encourage Detroit to tap into the link or whatever you're going to post. We do have a financial meeting coming up this Wednesday, 5 o'clock, the same day as the informational meeting, the engagement meeting concerning these potential cuts for our district. So I'm not gonna hold you all. Thank you, Jamarie Hall. Be safe, Detroit. I'll tap in another day, probably hopefully Wednesday, concerning these IEPs, you all, these individual educational plans for our ESC students, our exceptional students. But for now, we're gonna leave y'all with hope. We're gonna leave y'all with the ambition to speak and to be brave. And we're gonna leave y'all with whatever link and information Mr. Jamarie Hall has for you all. But be safe tonight, Detroit. But just be encouraged, if anything, and just know if you can't change Washington right now, you could definitely change your local community. Be safe and good night.